Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to the next video in the air hockey chain. This video is basically going to add in extra features into our gameplay to kind of make it a bit more playable and a bit more like, freeform. So what we did in the last tutorial, we kind of covered how to get the score working and that stuff. So I'm just going to quickly pause the game and show it running. Okay, so this is the game that we've got up to so far, and as you can see, oops, I'll just move that into the right position. Alright, so this is the game that we got up to so far, and as you can see, we've got the puck moving around slowly, and we've got the two pads that can move up and down, and they can collide with the objects and push it around a little bit. And the other thing that we've got is we've got the score and it updates. Unfortunately, at the moment, the game is painfully slow. Like, the reason we did it this slow was so that we could test things out, like that the puck was moving, but at the point where we are now, we kind of just want to get to like the maximum amount of score that we can, just to check that the score thing works and it resets appropriately. And it will eventually do that if I left it going and bouncing in the background, but we haven't really got all day. Alright, so what I'm going to do first of all, I just want to quickly go back into, I think, my score object, and I just want to show you that code that I put on the board I put into the game last time, yeah. And this is inside of the step event for the score object, and it's a code window. And where you get a code window from is in here in this code section. And I'm just going to sort of zoom into this and let you, write this in or check it to see if you've done it wrong at any point. Yeah. One other thing that I've done since the last time I've been doing these tutorials is actually made my screen resolution a bit smaller. So I changed it from like 1080p to 720, and that's basically so that everything's a little bit bigger on the screen. The way I'm developing this game is from like a laptop, and it's kind of got a really small screen and like a really high resolution, and everything's like small, and it's like I'm kind of used to it, but I don't think it translates very well in videos. So everything's just going to be a little bit bigger from now on. Anyway, so that's the code. Just make sure that you've got it inside of the step event of the score object, and basically that will let you restart the game. The other things to just to be sure of is that your score object is called the same as mine. So in the list, it's pretty much labeled the same there. And then the score values that we're using to basically test it and update are basically written exactly the same in this bit. And they're like the sort of tricky things that kind of stump new programmers. I'll probably get a document and paste this into it in the link, so that basically you can copy and paste it if that's a problem for you. Okay. Alright, so moving on to newer and better things. The first thing that we want to do is we're going to adjust some of the speed values in our game to make it a little bit more competitive and a little bit easier to play. So first of all, I want you to open up the puck object, as so, like this one. And then I want you to go into the create event here and double click on the move event that we have in here. The part that I want you to change, or make sure it's exactly the same as mine, is I want you to see these red arrows in the corner. I want you to make sure that you've basically selected all of these arrows, and what that means is that when the puck's originally created in the game, it will move in a random direction every time. So every time it doesn't just keep going to player 1's goal every time the game restarts. The next thing we want to do is we want to update the speed value here. So we're going to select this and we're going to update it to 8. And I know you're thinking you could probably put like speed 100 in there if you really wanted to. The reasons to resist that is when you start going into excessive speeds, it doesn't really update the speed of the object that's moving. It basically means every time that it moves, it basically works out where it will be in 100 pixels places, yeah. And if it's too high a number, yeah, and what it does is it will see the boundary of the level and it will go to collide with that, and instead of colliding with it, it will basically teleport out of the game and just basically leave and go into space, yeah. So keep the numbers kind of realistic, and you can tweak them a little bit, but just don't go too excessive on them because it will really screw things over. Okay, so okay on that, and then just a quick test. So I'm just going to pause my video real quick. Okay, I'm back. The reason why I'm pausing the video is just so that you don't have to sit through the compiler. And I've noticed when I'm making videos that the compiling actually just takes ages more than it normally does. Okay, so straight off the bat we can see that the puck's moving around a lot faster. It's a lot more competitive now, and you know, I think we could probably get to the point where one player will win. So we can just quickly test that out. So I probably want to score in the wrong. So in the red section is where I want the goals to go, and in which case it just blocked it with the red one, which is pretty bad. Get out of the way and go in the goal. Also, you know, for the sake of testing, I've made the goals really sort of big, so there's more chance of it going in. But obviously, I've just disproved that by it going completely in the wrong direction. I'll go the other way, please. Thank you. All right, I think one more goal, and oh my god, I may cut this because it seems to be going a bit weird. There we go. And you can see that it goes back to 0-0 once one player's won. So we can totally test that that works. Alright, moving on. The next thing that we want to update. Actually, let's go back into our puck. And I just want to check something in here. Inside of our puck, we've got two collisions with pad 1 and pad 2. And we just want to quickly change something on this. And the reason why we want to change this, let's just change it first and I'll tell you after. So go into pad 01, collision, so we're in puck and we're in the collision for pad 01, and we've got the bounce, and then where it says precise, we want to change this to, where it says not precise, we want to change that to precisely, yeah, and we want to do that for both pads, precisely, and I'll quickly test and show you that. Okay, so back in our game, we can see that whenever the puck hits the wall, or at the moment, it's kind of going in the sort of 45-degree angles, which we set it to. But when it now hits the pad, if I can make the pad even do anything, we can sort of like knock it in different angles. So, a really bad example of that. Yeah, so like that way, it's going to go slightly across like that. And so that we can basically force it to go in like a really unusual angles, which is kind of what you expect when you're playing air hockey. It's all about the way that you knock it and angles that it bounces off walls and stuff like that. So this is kind of exactly what we want. Obviously, it's still buggy and it's still kind of lock up. You can get the puck stuck in that, and this is kind of one of the issues that we're going to fix in this lesson. So I'm just going to stop this. Okay, right. So we managed to fix that. We managed to make it go in random angles. The next thing we want to do is actually in the object section here, we want to open up pad 01, and we obviously want to do pad 02 just after, and we want to basically update our movement, yeah, because our movement of our pads are quite slow as well. So firstly, open up pad 01 and click on the press event S and double click on the move, and then in here we've got it basically moving in the down direction, which is right, but we just want to update the speed to 7. And we want to go through all of these ones for like the key presses for both pads and basically make sure it's fair. So once I've done one pad, I'm going to quickly go through the other one and update the values. And if I'm moving too fast, then feel free to pause the video, yeah, and just make sure that you get all 4 of them. Yeah, so you've got the W and S key, and you've updated the movement speed to 7, and then you've got the up and down key on the other player, and you've basically upgraded them to 7. And I'm just going to give it a quick ninja test. Okay, so one way you could quickly, if you wanted to test the difference in the movement speeds, is you could basically set one to a movement speed and then leave one on the old movement speed, and you can kind of compare the difference. Like if they both start at the top and then you hold down, you can kind of see the difference in the movement speeds. That's one way that you could probably test it quite effectively. And also, like obviously, it's just the amount that you actually play test the game and carry on playing. All right, so moving on. I'll just close that. And the next part is we are going to go. Alright, we're going to go into the pads and we're going to change basically the collisions with the wall section, yeah? So by default, when you see this bit at the top here, you've got a wall collision, and then whenever we hit a wall with a pad, basically we stop. And you know, it's fairly useful and it's kind of what we want, but we kind of want the free movement that you kind of get when you're playing air hockey, that every time you're moving the pad around, it's like slippy movements and stuff like that, and you don't want to, like, imagine you got a wall there and you slam the pad into it. However much you slam the pad into it, like, you're going to get a certain amount of bounce, but at the moment we just go like that and just stop, and it kind of feels like dead movement, yeah? So we're going to update this by making it every time we hit the wall, we get a slight bounce away, like it will get a bit of movement speed going the other way until we basically interrupt it with pushing a button again, and it kind of makes it a bit more interesting. All right, so on the wall collision here, what we need to do is we need to go into the control tab, and then inside there we need to get a test variable, which is in the middle of the variable section. It's the one that's in the hexagon section, and when you drag it in, you should get this exact window pop up. Alright, the value that we want to test is the Y value. Yeah, so the Y value, or the Y position of currently where the pad is on the screen. And then the value here is other.y. And what other means is the other object that you're colliding with. So currently we are the pad, and then when we collide, we're colliding with the wall, so we're looking at the wall's basically Y position, but the specific one that we're colliding with, and not basically all of them. And then the operation section here, we want to select greater than or equal to, yeah? So greater than or equal to the Y position of the object that we're colliding with. And after we've done that, click OK. Then the next thing we want to do is in the other section here, we got these two like start blocks and end blocks, yeah? And these are the equivalent of curly brackets in code, and I'll probably cover that in a future thing. But what we want to do is get the first one, which looks like looks like a regular pyramid, yeah, which is a start block. And then we want to go into the move section and then grab a regular move, so fixed move, and drag that in there. And then in here we want to set the speed to 2, and we want to push the down arrow and click OK. Then after that, back into the control tab where in the other section, and then this time we want to grab the basically the Australian looking pyramid, which is the upside down pyramid, and put that into the position. Alright, and then once we've done that, we want to add in this in the other section. There's this one that says else on it. I want to drag that in there, and then grab another start block, go back to the move section, grab another fixed move. In here, push 2 again, and then push the up arrow, and then OK. And then finally, we want to end it all with an Australian pyramid. Okay, and you can see that that's the entire section. Once you've done that, once we've done that, we're going to quickly test it. So double check that you've got everything the same. So at the top, you've got a fixed move with a stop. Then that leads into this window where you got the variable checking the y-axis, and make sure when you type these names in that you're using lowercase. It should be other and dot y, or other period y if you're American, I guess that's what you say. And then you have oh sorry, this operation I've completely done wrong. This should be greater than or equal to. Lucky I caught that, otherwise I would look really embarrassed, red-faced when I tested that. And then in here we've got the fixed move of down and 2, and then in here we've got the fixed move of up and 2. And I'm just going to pause the video so I can run it. Okay, so back in here, and just going to quickly check to see if this works. So I'm going to move with the top pad up, and then basically as second you touch the top of the wall, you can't basically stop at the wall anymore. So you can't just go, oh well, I know he's going to come through here, and then I'm going to stop. Basically, you bounce off it, and you basically move at 2 all the way down until you get to the bottom, and you bounce the other way basically. So it's like complete movement all the time. And basically you can interrupt it by pushing one of the movement keys, and you basically speed it up, but you basically can't stop yourself on the top unless you like hammer the button against the wall. And sorry for the super tapping noises. Alright, and it should work on both pads, yeah? Actually, it won't work on both pads because we haven't implemented it on the second pad. Alright, so we're going to do that next. That was easy. Okay, so we're going to open up pad 01 quickly. Oop, that's the puck. Pad 01, wonderful. Inside of the wall collision, we're going to select everything from where it says the test variable all the way down to the end block. So that whole bit that I've selected is blue. And you basically do that by clicking on the top one, holding down Shift key, and then clicking on the bottom one. And if you do Control C, or alternatively you can right click and do copy, like so. And then afterwards you can click OK on this one. Open up pad 02. And then in the space here, if you do Control V or paste, so right click and go paste, it will put all the stuff in here. what you may notice is when it pastes it in, it basically puts the thing that you had at the top of the list at the bottom, and all you have to do is drag this back up to the right position. And the way that you have stuff laid out, the positioning of it is quite important. So just make sure that in your Pad 02 you have the same stuff and it's laid out the same way before you test. And once you've done that, you can click the test button. Might run actually fairly fast enough. Okay, wonderful, works. Except it's not in the view port. There we go. Alright, so both pads should be able to like go to the top and bounce off, and go to the bottom and then bounce off. Okay. Alright, let me just quickly explain that code because I think I missed that section. Right, what we've got here is we've got, if we hit the wall, do this, and that's kind of like our backup in case one of these screw up or just don't work. Yeah, so it would basically stop when it hits the wall. And then right away it's going, is our y greater than or equal to the y of the object that we're colliding with? So the position of that object, and this is us, is our y object greater than it? And if it is, which is basically the collision at the bottom, by the way, so if it's greater than that, then push off that way, yeah. And then this one here is like our sort of safe statement sort of thing. If it's not doing that and it's basically hitting the other way, then bounce off that way, yeah. And this is kind of like, this is like automatic code. In actual fact, we probably don't even need this anymore. It's like completely redundant, but we just got it there just for safety anyway. Sort of, yeah. All right, so we got that bit doing that, and it's all working perfectly. The next thing that we want to do is we kind of want to implement the same sort of system but against the puck, yeah. So what we have at the moment, sometimes the puck's coming in across like this, and we've got our pad here, and as this is moving up and this is going down, it basically gets crimped like that and it gets stuck until like we move the pad down or up or whatever, and then the puck just goes off in a random direction, and it's not usually the direction that we want. So like it's going into the goal, like sliding into the goal here like that, and then you go chunk like that, and then the goal's on this side here, and it's like we expect that it's going to repel off that way, and sometimes we move down and it just goes into the goal, and it's kind of like, oh, well, that sucks. So basically we're going to kind of fix that problem, and it's a problem I said we were going to fix earlier. Alright, so carrying on, I think, yeah, it was supposed to be in the pad, so open up the pad again, and then we need to add a collision. So we need to add a collision with the puck. Yeah, so the puck's colliding off us fine, but we need a collision on this object as well. So pad 01 and add a collision and select the puck, and then we've got a new section here. And then in this we want to add another test variable. So test variable, here we go. And then in this we're testing against the y again. So y. And then in here, rather than write other, we want to write the specific object we're colliding with. So obj underscore puck, and then a full stop, and then the y. So this is the y position of the puck. Yep. And then in here, we're going to do greater than or equal to, so that entire statement there, and OK. Then we're going to grab a normal pyramid, and we're going to grab a move. And in this move, when we bounce with the wall, we slide away at 2, and then on this one we want to slide away a little bit faster, but not too fast, so it's kind of like a different speed, and you can experiment with what speeds work. So push down on this and set this to 3, and OK. And then we want to put in an Australian pyramid. Probably even said that in an Australian accent. Cringe. Okay, only cringe because my Australian accent sounds probably more like Jamaican, possibly. Anyway, after that we want to put in an else statement, or an else thing from the other section. We want to put in a normal pyramid. We want to go to move, and we want to grab the normal move thing, fixed move, and we want to click up this time, making sure that I only click up, and speed 3 and OK, and then finally an Australian pyramid. Yeah, I was kind of contemplating whether I should do the accent there or not, but yeah, I decided not to. Anyway, this is how I teach. Okay, right. Anyway, so that's on that one there, and I'm just gonna run it to test it to check that everything's okay. And so pause. Okay, so back in the game thing, I'll select it, and I should be able to, if I collide with this, it basically, you can see my speed as my speed is here. and then basically I bounce off it at a slower angle, yeah, and it basically, the puck can move the pad around if I'm not even touching it, yeah, so no handsies. That's if it even goes that way. Obviously this one is still bugged, and this is the precise bug that we're trying to avoid. So this one can move like this, and it hits there and it goes slow, so let's move that out of the way. Hopefully hit me, there we go. And it's depending on where the center of the pad, the axis on the actual pad itself, not pad, puck rather, is compared to the axis on the actual pad itself. So whether one's slightly higher, then they're going to go that way, and if they're slightly the other way, they go the other way. And it keeps the game fluid. And as you can see, I'm not even touching it, and it's kind of like I've made a rudimentary AI, which is obviously completely rubbish, but you know, it can kind of almost play against no one, or yourself. It's totally fine. Alright, so what we're going to do is what we've made on one pad, we're going to implement onto the other. So here we've got all of the collision stuff. So I'm going to select this entire selection part, do Control C, click, might as well just do copy basically, go OK, go to pad 02, and then in this section here we're going to add a collision, and the collision we're going to add is to the puck. And then in here we're going to paste in the code that we had, and I'm going to quickly real-time test it, I think, while I talk over the top. Alright, so what you should have here is we've got like a freeform game. You can go into any of these values that you have, and you can change them and customize them. Just put this back on the screen. And basically you kind of got like a freeform game. But once you start the game, start moving, like everything is always moving. And probably maybe a little bit of a speed increase, but I think we're about to change the graphics in the next video anyway. In fact, that's what the plan is for the next video. The other thing you can change is you can move the goals back into the goal slots. So I'm going to do that. So go back into the room, and this is kind of our test level. So I can go into the object section, and I can select the object that I want. I want goal 01. I'm just going to delete this one. I'm going to put it into the position, and then I'm going to drag it down so it fills in the goal slot. And make sure this is actually on the screen so you guys can see it. Oops, gonna drag this up, or not apparently. Wonderful. Okay, anyway, I'm just gonna cut off the top a little bit. Maybe I might experiment more with the resolution because this is a bit weird. Okay, so that's that side. And then I'm going to pan over to the other side. Basically, you can pan like this inside of the view window if you use the middle mouse button and you click down on it. I'm going to grab this object and position it, and then grab the corner and drag it up, so basically they're in the right position. So everything's in the right position, and we've got the boundaries everywhere we want. And the only other thing that we can do to kind of make the game a little bit better is if I close this and open up the wall object, and then inside the wall object you have this tick box which is visible. And if you turn that off and click OK, and then you do the same to both the goals, so only do it to these objects, otherwise you will have invisible players and it will be completely weird. So all three of those objects are invisible, and when you're in the actual game editor itself you can still see them as per normal, but when I run the game, which I will do in real time so you can see that I'm not cheating, and I will carry on talking the entire time so you can see that I'm not doing a stupid cut, blah 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 blah. There we go. Right, you can see here we've got the outlines of the actual game arena itself, and the objects are still quite clearly colliding off them completely. Yeah. Well, there's a bit of a weird collision there. I think that's because the box is kind of like a little bit higher than the actual object itself. But you can see it's all working perfectly, except like we can only see the actual game itself. So you can do that with certain objects. You can have invisible objects in there or phantom objects, which is pretty cool. Alright, so this is kind of where I want to leave the game for now. We can speed it up, the values on it, but only just speed them up by 1 pixel each time you try and test it, yeah. And you want to try and test it with another player so you can see what is actually sort of competitive, yeah. Another thing you can do is what can you do? Another thing you can do is just kind of experiment with the values so you can get it more exciting. But with this first one, this might be your level 1, and if you want to actually make like a different room with a different level, you can go to the room section and you can duplicate the room, and it gives you another version of the room, and then basically you can mess around with the values on the objects, or mess around with the shape of the screen and that. But that's kind of a lesson for another day, I think. Alright, so I'm just going to delete that. and I'm going to end it here. Okay, so I was Chris, and this was kind of finishing off the drag and drop section of it. In the next video, we're going to go into the Photoshop or the Pixlr stuff and actually show how to do the graphics and kind of give this game an actual facelift. So these were all the functional graphics, and then afterwards we're going to basically make it look super pretty. Okay, alright, see you